Ooh.
Yeah. All right. So welcome back to the Full for Creators podcast. My name is Warren, and today we have a special guest. And I actually really do mean that today because you were actually there for like the very beginning of like my podcast journey. Like you really helped me out a whole lot, and like forever, like as long as I go, I'll never forget that. Like it was so awesome for you helping me out, like getting everything started.
Thanks. Yeah, I enjoyed it. You kind of helped me out on my my Eastgate journey.
Yeah, because I mean we go back.
It's so I'm glad to have been a part of it. It was fun. Like it's been fun watching you do the podcast and kind of grow into this like thing. Because I know at first it was like we don't know where to go, we don't know how to do, like whatever.
Yeah.
And, but you really like. It's been what, like 6 months since you started this?
It's been maybe
8, maybe like 8 now.
Probably pushing 8 right now. But it's like I remember like when we first started. Like neither one of us wanted to be on camera. We didn't want, like, both of us was like, okay, we'll start the podcast. You talk. No, you talk. It's like we just kept going back and forth. Like nobody wanted to be the one to like interview anybody.
Yeah.
So, because I'm still, even though I've been doing it for like a couple months, which is like nothing compared to like how long everybody else has been doing podcasts, I still don't feel, I got to be honest, I still don't feel 100% comfortable with being on camera.
Yeah.
And being in the forefront without somebody else being there to like kind of balance it out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about like just doing a solo thing.
Right.
But you've been doing a fantastic job. I've really liked the stuff that you've been doing.
Thank you.
Quality's up there. I like the stuff that y'all put out with Dope Coffee that I saw recently.
Appreciate that.
And there y'all got some little merch out of that too. That was pretty tight.
Yeah. We started doing like mugs and stuff like that. Yeah. So we're not really pushing the merch yet. I want to start trying to build like a good supporter base and make sure that I put out enough quality content and like really provide value for people that are listening. And that's why I wanted to bring on people like you, because I'm always interested in people who are creating content, why they create content, and how you got started and like what motivates you. So it's always been like really interesting for me, to listen and watch people's moves and see what they do. And now like, I think I can kind of teach my audience and kind of ask the same questions along the same lines. It's like, how did you get started with like Wrong Space Films? Like, how did you get started on your journey? I mean, because you're doing a whole lot of stuff, and it's just, I've always been interested in that, but I don't think we really had a conversation about how you started with like your production and what you started doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I've been making little short films since I was a kid.
Okay.
So it's just something I've always done. I guess the thing that motivates me is like watching Batman movies and watching, like other, Marvel movies and stuff. And every time I watch one of those, I get like super excited, and all I want to do is like, I want to be Spider-Man. And
right.
And the closest thing that I can do to that is, number one, Eastgate now, which is like the closest thing that I can get to like that excitement, kind of like that fast pace,
that
whatever.
Rush.
And then the second thing I can do is make movies. Now that has translated into me doing a lot of like really stupid short films, which I love doing. I think they're a lot of fun. But I am trying to pivot into doing more action-packed kind of superhero stuff and science fiction-oriented projects. And that's kind of like going to be my focus this year.
Okay.
But yeah, my motivation is really just I just get excited when I watch a movie, and I want to do that. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, I actually feel the same way, but it seems like we live in a time now where that can be way more than just a dream, because I've always like watched movies, like especially like superhero movies. That's another thing me and you have in common. I've always watched like a whole bunch of superhero movies, and I've even been so nerdy that I've always watched, like, I listen to the director's commentary, like hear how they made it, and even hearing them talk about it as much as they do and go into as much detail, I still never thought it was possible to be able to make movies on that level. And it's like now it just feels so much more attainable to be able to have that goal. Like you're saying, you watch Batman and like all the Marvel movies, and you have that goal. You wanted to make those movies, and now it feels like that's actually an achievable dream. So like, what are you doing now? Like, how do you feel like you're progressing fast enough to start moving towards that? Or do you feel like there's a couple things that you have to start working towards in order to get in that position?
I guess my personal goals as far as the filmmaker is concerned is less like I don't necessarily want to go be a director for Warner Brothers,
right?
Because I'm not, number one, I'm not a director. Like this year I am dipping my toes into it for the first time.
Okay,
but I'm co-directing, kind of like with the podcast stuff. Like I'm like I don't necessarily want to be a director, but I do want to like have a little bit of a creative touch on the films that I work on and that I produce. So I guess to answer your question, I'm not necessarily looking to make Batman films like big time, but I do want to make superhero films. I do want to make Batman fan films, Spider-Man fan films. But on the way, as I'm doing those, I'm working on hopefully doing larger, like original superhero films.
Got you. Yeah. So speaking of like the fan films, Joker's Vacation was fucking awesome. So tell me about the process of actually doing that. Like what went into doing that?
That was a really fun project. My buddy Ruben and I were living together at the time. He came up from Orlando and stayed at my place for a handful of months, and he wrote it. He wanted to play the Joker, and he was an actor. I had about $5,000 in my pocket, and I was like, let's try to make this thing.
Okay.
Which, in retrospect, was not enough money. We didn't have enough time. Like, we didn't give ourselves enough time to put the whole thing together. But, yeah, it was just, it's one of those things, like, I get my mind on something, and I like, just push forward and make it. And that thing... it was just a lot of weekends with me and Ruben sitting around talking, working on the costumes. There's a lot of people who worked on that film. I think we had a crew of about 20 total in the end, and then a lot of people helped me with post production because that was at the time something I wasn't super comfortable with. But a lot of the prep was just me and Ruben messing around with stuff, like cutting like we did so much stuff that didn't even make it into the film because like the weekend came and we didn't plan it properly. And so like last minute changes were happening all over the place. Like the day before we started filming our box truck, like I had a buddy who had a box truck and he didn't show up. So, like, all of a sudden, we didn't have a truck to take all of our gear to set. Ruben and I were sharing a car at the time. And so, like, it was just this little Hyundai Elantra that we were sharing. And so I had to, like, get my other friends in their cars and, like, pack it stuff. So we built set pieces that we didn't bring to the set because we didn't have a box truck for it. So there's just a lot of stuff like that was kind of, like, rough. But we still did it, and honestly, like the director of that, Tyler Falbo, fantastic director. Mike Collins did the DP. They're friends, and they do projects together. They have a couple of they have one feature film out now, and they're just like really good filmmakers.
Okay.
And had they not shown up to like take care of all the creative like look and feel of that film, it would not have turned out the way it did. And so I got to give a big shout out to Tyler and Mike and their little team that came and helped like make the whole thing because they showed up and made it look as good as it did.
That's awesome. Because it turned out really good. So,
thanks.
But how do you build a network of people like that help you with projects like that? Like, is it just over time you've just kind of just run into a bunch of different people?
Yeah, I mean, so I went to film school.
Okay.
Whereas that's where my main network started. My buddy Ryan Redmond and I, we do the on Zoom for Wrong Space every week, which is just this dumb little short thing that it's just fun to do. You know
what? It's so funny because the on the Zoom, like every time y'all drop an episode, it's the most funniest shit I've ever seen in my life, and I'm like. I just can't believe that it doesn't have the following that it really does. It's amazing. I think it's hilarious.
Thanks, I appreciate it. It's one of those things that we're like, it's super easy to do, and we're like, can I curse on this?
Right? Yeah.
All right. Fuck it. Like, let's just do this every week,
right.
and move forward.
Right.
And so that's fun. But Ryan and I met in college.
Okay.
One of our other friends like linked us up and we started drinking together. and he's a writer, and I like to make stuff, and so we started doing that. From that, we did a web series back in like 2012 or something called On Set, which is why we call On Zoom.
Gotcha.
We did On Set, and I met Ruben. And then Ruben came to here, to Atlanta with me for a little while. We did Joker's Vacation. Well, when On Set premiered on YouTube to like the 300 people that watched it, Tyler Falbo was a production assistant on the TV show that I was working on at the time at ABC, and he saw it and he was like, "Hey, man, that's really cool. Like, I do short films too," and he does like really funny, dark, really well shot short films, and he actually blew up on YouTube and Reddit and stuff shortly after that, and so I was like, "Hey, you want to direct this Joker's Vacation for Ruben and I?" And so it's just one of those things. Like, it's not necessarily like I don't necessarily go out of my way to like try to make contacts and stuff. It just kind of happens. And like you and I met, like we didn't meet because of this. We met because of something else that we both
Eastgate,
do.
yeah.
And then we, like, the more we talked about it, is like, oh, hey, you want to do this thing? I do something similar to it. Why don't we try to like put something together? And it kind of branches off like that. And pretty much everybody that I've met, and it does help that I work in film and TV. Like, you know, my day job is an accountant for TV shows, and so like I do run into people who do this kind of stuff, like the projects that I've got coming up, the superhero projects. Mm-hmm. You know, I like costumers. I know costumers, so I can just be like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. What do you like? Would you be interested in it?" And most people in the film industry are like us. You know, they want to make stuff. They want to create things, and so for the most part, they're willing to help. At the very least, like give you advice,
right?
And some of them want to be like more hands-on. So,
and the thing is, like, even with the advice, it's extremely important. And it's just like, I got so much information from you about like how to get started, and actually, like, even though I say I don't really have the most confidence with like doing this, I feel like the more projects that we do, the more projects that we can do together, or the more projects that I actually do on my own, I'm starting to actually gain that expertise and gain that confidence, and it really does help. But it also helps like building a network of people around you. So that's really good that it's a more organic kind of natural thing. Like, you're already kind of in the proximity of being in like the movie industry field. So it does help you out a whole lot. Yeah. Being around those good people.
Well, and it also helps starting off. Like, I will talk shit about my school all day long. I hate it.
Right.
You know, I'm in debt because of it. However, because I went to film school, I met a lot of cool people who want to make stuff and who are always creating things. And that helped a lot too. Like, that's, you know, one of the biggest things that I can contribute to. If you want to call it my success, I don't necessarily have the success that, you know, the YouTube success that I want yet, but like the fact that I'm able to continue making stuff and enjoy doing it, you know.
Right.
Because like one of my other best friends and like really, really close cohorts is Chris Flippo.
Okay.
He's the guy who directs and writes the feature films, the 2 feature films that I produced. I met him because we worked on a show together in accounting and like started talking about Breaking Bad. And then turns out we both made films. And so we're like, you know, again, it's just like constantly meeting people who are, you know, who like similar things that I like. Mm-hmm. And then just going from there, it helps that like I work in that industry for sure.
Right. So what's like, if you could paint your picture of like the ultimate goal for yourself as a creator, like I know you said you kind of don't really see yourself as like the main director, but like what do you see yourself as? Like, is there one particular thing, or do you kind of just want to bounce around and just be creative in general?
I would call it a producer, even though I know better, in the sense that like, I guess my ultimate goal is creating a company that allows me to make whatever I want whenever I want to make it, which is so vague and so like out there. That's why I kind of gravitate towards doing YouTube and Instagram stuff right now, because I can just make stuff for myself. And if other people like it, great. And eventually I'm hoping, one of those things will take off. But, in the meantime, yeah, I want to touch directing a little bit. I don't necessarily like talking to people. So, the part of directing of talking with actors and like trying to get them to do what I want kind of scares me and doesn't really, doesn't make me super excited. But lining up a shot and planning out, I'm working on some storyboards right now with some people, and that's like a lot of fun for me. They're doing a lot of the work, but I did start it out and like started planning things, and that kind of thing is fun. But I also get a real kick out of putting everything together, like contacting the grips and contacting the costume people and contacting the props people, and like, hey, like let's talk about what a battering should look like and that kind of stuff. So like there's a lot of that's like the director's job to be creative and like come up and collaborate with those other departments, which is why I want to dip my toes in it, because I get excited about that stuff. But I don't necessarily want to be the guy on set saying action, because that's stressful. And
see, I asked the question because I feel the same way. Like I just started really feeling like I could even start to call myself a creative. Like when we started the podcast just a couple months ago. Before that, I wasn't really doing very much creative stuff. And now that I'm in it or dipping my toe into it, I don't know what to call myself.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I really don't. It's just like I started a podcast, but then I it was just audio form. Excuse me. Then we started doing a video form. And now, like, we moved on to, like, starting to direct concerts, like, almost like a Tiny Desk style concert. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, feature films would be dope. And it's just, like, so many different things. I have no idea what to call myself. And then now I'm starting to think, like, I don't really have to pigeonhole myself into just one thing. Just create some independent shit and do what you like, because you don't know how the audience is going to react to it. Yeah. Do what you like to do. And then if it catches on, it catches on. You hope it catches on. You want to build your craft and be a lot better at it. And
if it catches on, you can reinvest that money. Like ideally you'd be making money if it catches on. Yes. And you can reinvest that money into the things. So that is definitely a goal. But I think you're right in that you have to make stuff that you want to make, because if you're not having fun doing it, like, why not just go work your accounting job?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm having fun with it, but I'm always thinking about, like, what's the goal of it, though? Because I don't know. There was a guy that skated with us before named Eric Decker. Do you remember him?
I don't know.
Well, it's like, I'm pretty sure you skated with him a couple of times, but he's, like, literally, like, the fastest growing YouTube channel. Like, he just reached, like, 1 million followers in, like, a short amount of time. But before that, I met him, through Eastgate. Actually, I saw one of his videos on YouTube, and I was like, "This shit is hilarious." Yeah. How was he not like? It's almost like with your Zoom meetings. I'm like, how was this not way bigger? And then right after I saw his video, I actually met him at Switch Yards out here in Atlanta, and then we started talking and stuff like that. And he started telling me a little bit of his plans, but he just started making some wild, crazy videos, and I'm just like, on one hand, I'm like, what's the point of it? Because you don't really have the following that you should have.
Right.
And it's like, why are you putting so much effort into this when it's not blowing up? But it's just, he had a passion for it, he had a love for it, and he had a drive. So it's just like, you have to create the content that you want to see, or try to fill a void that you feel is missing. And if you love it, you love it, just do it. And eventually he's, like I said, he is one of the biggest YouTubers, like, out there now. Yeah. And it just, in just a short amount of time, because he did what he loved. So it's just awesome. But I'm always thinking, especially when you put so much time into a video and you're like, this is awesome, and like nobody sees it.
You're telling me, man. Joker's Vacation is kind of that thing for me. Like we went through a lot of different iterations of the edit and stuff, and Ruben and I had the lamest term. We had a conflicts of what is it?
Conflict of interest?
No. Creative differences.
Got you.
On like what we wanted to do, and we finally managed to push that thing together and put it out. And when we put it out, nobody watched it. We got I still got more views on that than anything else because it had the Joker and Harley Quinn hashtag, and Batman was in it. but we got like 3,000 views. But now we've got like over 20,000 views because like over time that kind of stuff does well. But it's definitely one of those things like we put like on Zoom, the very first like chunk of those, we shot like 10 in one sitting. Okay. It took all day. Like we shot all day. And then it took weeks to edit them all. And, we get some views, but like it's nothing crazy. But you're right. Like it at a certain point, it's more about like, do you enjoy doing it? And then hopefully other people will enjoy it too,
Right. Because it's like I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of them are talking about, evergreen content, like shit that you can just put out there, and eventually it'll start. Like once you're able to monetize your channel, eventually people start catching on, and they'll go back and like watch your old, and go back and watch your old catalog, but. And I probably don't really have a good leg to stand on with saying this now, but it is frustrating when you put so much effort in something and it's just like it doesn't blow up yet. But you have to fall back on that passion. You have to fall back on the reason why you're actually creating that content, and you're doing it out of the love of creating that content.
Yeah. And that's also kind of the hope too, right? Like that. You'll eventually make a thing, and you can and I'm sure you've done this. In fact, I know you've done this because I've seen you grow over the past like 8 months from what we first started doing to this.
Right.
You see what works, and you do more of it.
Right.
There was a time where after Joker's Vacation, I refocused to doing like really cheap, really short, really easy things.
Okay.
Because $5,000 is a lot of money to spend on a thing that isn't going to make you any money.
Right.
And as an accountant, I'm also like always like super like what am I spending this money for?
Right.
And so I like refocused on doing things that I didn't necessarily like, not superhero related things, not sci-fi related things, just stupid, dumb short films. And that's because I thought at the time that seemed to be a little bit more kind of up my alley and what might work for me. And now I'm kind of trying to get back to more of the superhero sci-fi stuff. So I guess my point is we evaluate what we're doing to try and find that niche, find that thing that like will explode, hopefully, while still like making it something that we want to do.
Right. See, and that's one of the other things that, that I want to talk to you about. So, say you make a piece of content and it actually goes viral. Do you feel like you're at a point right now where you can capitalize off of that moment? Because I've seen so many people, even in Atlanta, that had like, or just anywhere in general, that have like these viral videos or these viral moments, and then they don't have anything to capitalize off of. They don't have any like merch. They don't have any other videos. They don't have any other way to monetize their popularity. So you're popular, but you're not, capitalizing off of that.
That's something actually I was thinking about this morning when I woke up and like had my coffee. I was like, man, so I've got a website. I've got some merch. I've got some things kind of set up for that. It's really about time and focus, which I don't have a lot of focus. I tend to like be very emotional about what I'm working on at any one time. Like, so I did make a website at one point because I was really passionate about putting together this website and making it a place where if somebody went to Wrong Space Films, they could get to my Instagram, and my Facebook, and my merchandise, and all my short films and everything, all that stuff. But it's there, and now it's dated because I haven't touched it in 4 years. It's not all of my stuff anymore. It's not the current store that I have. And, it's a little bit difficult to think about making sure that you have that baseline infrastructure ready for whenever, if that ever happens. Because you definitely want, I definitely want to have the ability, whenever I release my next short film, if it goes viral, then hopefully... like you said, I can make some money off of it. I can monetize on it. So it's something I think about, and then I go into this like cycle of, well, I haven't gotten that yet. So maybe instead of focusing on the infrastructure, I should focus on the content and making sure that I create good, consistent content that people like will come back and watch. I could tell you, I've got a couple hundred followers on YouTube, but I haven't posted anything in like a year on YouTube. I post pretty regularly on Instagram, but I don't post regularly on YouTube at all. So like those people, they probably don't think I exist anymore. And it's kind of that cycle that I have. I'm like, well, I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to focus on this, and then I got to focus on this. And it's a little bit difficult. I find it to be very difficult to focus on something that's important, or figuring out what is the most important thing. And I do think having that infrastructure of content creation and like your different platforms or whatever it is, having that figured out so that it's just kind of an afterthought is important, and I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, because it's really an interesting time right now, because a lot of people, I believe before, were just like, they're just a rapper or a singer or a musician, but it's like now so many people in so many different industries are starting to become like looking at the business aspect of everything. So it's like, you as a content creator, you have to focus on way more than just creating content, because if you want to turn this into like a full-time job, you have to start building that infrastructure. And just like you say, it's like a balance of like, do you focus on the infrastructure on the back end first, or do you focus on creating content? It's just like, you have to really find a balance of kind of doing, at least that's what I'm starting to see. You have to find a balance of creating both at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you focus on just making a content, when one thing blows up, if you're lucky, if you don't have that infrastructure in place, then you can't capitalize off of it. And
right.
It's a good problem to have, but at the same time, if you don't, just like you said, if you don't have that focus, then you're going to be missing out a lot. So that's what I'm trying to build right now. I'm trying to build that focus of trying to build that infrastructure on the back end, and then trying to create consistent content, because that's very important. If you make something every once in a while, just like you say, people might not even know you exist.
That's one of the reasons why when Ryan and I first talked about doing on Zoom, I got really excited, because I was like, this is something that, it's easy, it's fun. It's something I'm doing with my buddies. Like, we just get drunk, and like literally every episode of that, my girlfriend Julie gets, I don't think she gets mad at me, but like she's always like, "Oh, you're doing it on Zoom? The day's gone." Because I'll wake up early to do it, but like I'll be completely shit faced by 3:00, and then I'll take a nap. I'll sleep till like 8 p.m. and then she's like, "Well,
Yeah.
But it's consistent content that we can make. That's fun and it's easy. And so I've tried to come up with some other ideas. I have tried, and Ruben, if he watches this, is going to be mad at me for saying that like we're working on it, because we're not really working on it. But there's another like short film, Instagram kind of style thing that I've been trying to make for a little while, because I do like those little shorter, quicker things. And if I can continue doing those while building the infrastructure of how do I monetize on this eventually? Because I do have, I will say this, I'm working on 2 short films right now that I'm hoping they will definitely both be bigger than Joker's Vacation. And I'm hoping that they kind of explode the next wave of things for Wrong Space, right? But I'm not going to be able to shoot them till later than the year, when COVID is less of a problem and it's more safe for us to do so. And also, there will be editing and stuff involved. So in the meantime, I still got to be pumping out content,
something consistent, yeah.
And also in the meantime, I want to make sure that when I release those, specifically the Batman short film, that I have the infrastructure set up to where I can monetize. Because I do think that, releasing something like a big fan film has the potential to get more views than anything else that I make. Okay. Just because of the type of film it is, and the type of, I watch fan films. Bat in the Sun is like one of those production companies that I watch everything they make every single day, because I think it's fantastic Batman comic book content.
One of my favorite fan films was the Power Rangers one. Have you seen the gritty reboot of the Power Rangers?
I have not seen all of it because they did a bunch of
crazy.
episodes of it, right? Or is
No,
it
I
just
think
one?
it was just one thing, and it's like even the dude from like Dawson's Creek was in it.
Oh yeah.
That shit was insane. But yeah, I mean, but I totally get it. Like that can bring a lot of attention to your channel,
Right.
and then people will try to figure out what else you're actually doing.
Exactly, and as much as like because I want to obviously make Batman content because I'm a stupid Batman fan. What is the term simp? I simp over Batman.
You know what I just watched
What's
recently? I just watched Justice League Doom the other night.
Oh yeah,
It's fucking
Pretty
that's
good.
an awesome movie.
dude, the cartoons are so
Yeah,
like I don't know why I can't wait to shit all over the new Justice League. But like
I know. I was like, I'm not gonna see it, but it's gonna be on HBO Max, and I got this, so fuck it, I gotta watch it.
it's free. It's a 4-hour movie. I'm gonna hate it.
I am too, but I'm gonna
like-
watch every minute of
I'm
it.
like,
though.
why can't y'all just take your all right? That's
Yeah,
a whole,
exactly.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah, we could do a whole nother five. Yeah,
But yeah, like so I guess that's my goals for this year is to kind of like, all right, get these 2 short films made. We're prepping them now. Once they're ready to release into the world, I want it to be like I want to be able to do stuff right away. At that point, because I feel like there's a potential. Joker's Vacation has been the highest viewed thing that I've made. It took time, but it has a lot of views, and I do think that if I do it correctly, then this could be the next wave of things for me. I get too excited whenever I think about it. I gotta like reel myself back in, be like, okay, no, we haven't done it yet. We haven't even made the films yet.
I mean, but it starts up here though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we were just talking about the infrastructure and stuff, and it's just like, what is it that I need? Like, obviously websites, obviously like YouTube's, Instagrams and Facebooks and all the different things. I'm going to start a Pinterest, or I started a Pinterest a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I got a LinkedIn, and I hardly ever use it, but I'm always listening to Gary V's. Like, that's the most organic reach you can get, like LinkedIn and TikTok. I'm like, fuck do I need a TikTok for? But it's like, that's how you get seen, though.
I
It's
just
like,
started
that's part
doing
of it.
TikToks for the On Zoom. And honestly, it's crazy. Like one of our On Zoom videos organically, because that's the thing. Like we've got thousands of views that on Zoom from paid ads, because I did that for like a month.
I've done
just
that.
to like see how it would go. And we got thousands of views, but it doesn't translate into followers or actual likes or actual views. So we stopped doing that. It's like a waste of money for now.
Right.
And but I put it on TikTok, and one of my videos has like 600 views in 2 days, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I guess it's perfect for TikTok.
And you're not dancing or anything like that. It's just like
Yeah.
the same shit that you're just bringing over to the TikTok.
I should dance for it. I should take my clothes off and dance for it, but like, I'm not that confident, so I'm not going to. But right now, like the Wrong Space TikTok is just on Zoom.
Right.
And then once I think once I catch up to, I'm releasing them every day right now. And because we have a huge backlog of On Zooms all of a sudden. But once I've released all of those, then I'm going to start trying to rethink about what TikTok is. And that's another thing. Like you got to think about the type of stuff that you're making and where it's going, right?
Yeah. Because it really has to be contextual.
Yeah.
Because, I've been doing a little bit of research, and they say, don't just take a YouTube video and like put it on fucking Facebook. Like
Right.
you have to think about the platform and then kind of using it organically. So, but I do think the On Zoom, I think that's something that you're releasing mainly on Instagram, but I think that can translate properly to TikTok.
I think the biggest difference is how it is edited, or not necessarily edited, but like
The format?
the format, like the actual format. So right now I'm just releasing the same things that I released on Instagram, but in 2021 we changed our format a little bit on Instagram to kind of like we streamlined a lot of On Zoom, other than the fact that we get shit faced and can't get through an episode.
Got to keep that.
Other than that, like we've really streamlined some of the things that we're doing, and I think in the like going forward here in the next couple of weeks, I'll reach the 2021 On Zoom stuff, and I think I just need to change the aspect ratio, change the closed captioning, because the closed captioning for for on Zoom is right below in the black, but like I think TikTok is this portrait kind of thing, and they do these weird. I don't know TikTok stuff. I'm just getting into it, but it's weird and it doesn't look that good. Okay. Like the people with closed captioning on TikTok, it's like this weird, like the text is all over the place, but that's the thing. So I'm gonna try to do that, I guess, for the on Zoom stuff, so it looks a little bit more on brand for TikTok.
Got you.
But it takes extra time, and then the good news is that's one of the things is we've already recorded it. Like we started it for Instagram, so all I have to do is it might take me 2 or 3 more hours to do the extra edit for TikTok, but it's not like I had to shoot a whole new thing. The edit is basically there. I just got to change aspect ratios and like shift videos to fit. You know what I mean? Whereas like if I was trying to do just specific things for TikTok, it might not. Like it would take way longer.
Right. And the thing about the on Zoom thing that I like so much is that you've created enough consistent content where you've developed a different problem, but I think it's a kind of a good problem to have. So right now, you have enough content where it's just like I created great consistent content that I'm proud of, that I like, but not enough people are seeing it yet. And I haven't gotten to that point yet where I'm like, where I can bitch about it. I'm like, damn, I created great content. I'm happy. I'm proud of it. And not enough people have seen it yet. So I guess I just have to keep working at it until I get enough content, and then I start worrying about the problem, like how do I get people to see this awesome shit that I'm making? Because especially when I first started out, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was like, it's okay, but I'm working. And it's like I'm just waiting to get to that point where I'm like, I got all of this shit that I'm just ready for everybody to see, and now I have to figure out how to market myself. So it's good that you've created enough content, and now you're thinking about the marketing aspect of it, how to get more eyeballs on it.
One of the things that I've taken inspiration from, though, is your Instagram page for 404 Creators, because I think you've done a good job of what I was just talking about, where you create a podcast, and then you make Instagram stories, and you make Instagram posts, and you put it on the different platforms, and you're taking, like, podcasts are a longer form thing, right?
Right.
On Zoom is a minute long, and so it's kind of an easy thing to like tell somebody, like, look, just watch for a minute.
Right.
Podcasts are a little bit more difficult to get people to like dive into because they're lengthy. Usually people will listen to them in their cars. They have very specific ways that they intake podcasts. But I think you've done a really good job, and this has been inspiring to me for my own Instagram page. Like, I need to take this stuff and make more like bite-sized content for the people who come to my page.
Right.
And I don't know, like you might not have realized this, but since January hit, I've started doing that more because of watching 404 Creators Instagram page. I was like, man, this is smart. Like, he's doing stories. I'm not doing stories still. I got to figure that out. But you're like posting stories, relevant content to the stuff that y'all talk about in your podcasts. So like y'all will have a podcast and you'll talk about a movie, and then you'll post like news articles or like little video clip of something like that on your Instagram page. And I think that's the kind of stuff that like really keeps people involved. And I think that if you keep doing that kind of stuff, you're going to find success with it.
Thank you. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a lot more engagement. So, when I post stuff, I need to start asking questions and start, even though I'm not doing a podcast, like it was a weekly thing when I was working with my other partners before. And because of the pivot, I had to try to find a different way of actually creating content and figure out what I need to do. So that's why I started doing more stories and started doing like news segments and, just started trying to not really educate people, but inform people. Just like one of my favorite, websites and channels is like Nerdist News.
Yeah.
Like they talk about like all the shit that I love. So it's like, I love seeing that. I love seeing Nerdist News and just all these different channels that they talk about superhero shit all day and movies all day. And it's like, I would love to do something like that.
Yeah.
And so that kind of brings me to, I don't think that what I'm looking to do is just like, I love doing a podcast. I love doing what I'm doing personally, but I'm not the most comfortable on camera. And maybe I should stop saying that because it just takes time. But at this point, I feel like I would be way more comfortable, like, being an audio guy, being the guy behind the cameras and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm thinking about I'm working more towards lending my growing talents to like helping other people get their stuff off the ground, like producing content for other people. Is that something that you've ever considered doing? Just like, I can do both at the same time. Like, if you don't have a project that you're super passionate about right now, that you're building from the ground up, have you ever thought about like lending your talents to like another project that's not necessarily yours?
So I've done that.
Okay.
In fact, not last year, but the year before, 2019, I started the year out where I was like, this YouTube thing's not working out for me. I'm putting all this effort and this energy into it, and it sucks, and I hate it, and I hate everything about it.
Right.
And I'm never going to make another movie ever again. I'm very emotional about this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I can make these movies. Clearly, I've made a bunch of them. Like, they're dumb, they're short, whatever, but I can make them happen. So I was like, I'm going to start focusing on doing other people's stuff. And I did. And there was a handful of different things that I did in 2019 that were for other people. And I found out very quickly that that's not something that I'm interested in doing.
Really? Okay.
Because, like we get to... When it comes to producing other people's projects, it starts to feel like my accounting job, where like I don't care about it. Like I don't care about the TV show that I'm working on right now at all. Like I'm sure that the showrunner does, I'm sure that the writers do, but like I just pay the bills. So I don't care about it.
Gotcha.
When it comes to producing other people's projects, I can do it. There's a certain amount of creativity in putting things together that's fun. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I'll be honest, when shit hits the fan and it's your fucking fault, that sucks. Yeah. If it's for your thing, I can take it. There's shooting on set, there was a number of technical problems that happened. We got the cops called on us. We had... neighbors at the house we were shooting at were constantly coming up to us and like telling us to fuck off and like being just fucking super rude.
Really?
And I had no problem dealing with all of those issues. In fact, I felt really good about it because like things would happen and I'd walk up to the people and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, let's figure this problem out." And I usually and in that instance, I was able to talk everybody off. But like when I was doing other people's stuff in 2019, stuff would happen like that because it's just going to happen when you're making films. People don't like it. It's annoying. And it, like, I just wanted to quit. Like, whenever those things would pop up, I'd be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this person right now because I don't care enough about the project to, risk my reputation and my health and all that stuff. So I guess to your point, I came back around to, you know what, I'm just going to focus on my own stuff. And I'll be honest, I ask a lot of people to do stuff, and I have to remember that, like,
they may not be as passionate. It's a job. It's just a job for them.
Right. So it might be something that I'm really passionate about, but, like, they'll be feeling like I did in 2019 whenever I was doing that stuff.
That's interesting.
So it's
yeah.
It's a thing I'm learning how to do. It's taking me forever to learn it, but
right.
Yeah.
And see, like I don't know where I stand 100. Like you've been through that process. That's why I'm glad that you can tell me that you've been through that process because I'm doing it right now. So I love producing my own content. Love trying to develop things from scratch for myself. But I've had a little bit of experience with producing for other people, and it is fun. Like I like feeling like I'm putting pieces in place and lining stuff up. Like even with like the music project that I did for for the concert, that was a pretty good experience for me. And dealing with like musical artists, you really don't want to step out of bounds and like try to tell them too much to do. But it's like, yeah, they did the music, but when you're producing like some video content for them, they want you to tell them what to do, and that's something I didn't understand.
Yeah,
at first. So it helped me out with my confidence in saying, you know what, you need to do this. Even though that's their project, this music thing is my project. So It's like, and for to have a client, put you in that position and say, look, tell me what to do. Like, it was kind of empowering. So And it was something I was passionate about. Like, I did want to start doing concerts and stuff like that. So I'm trying to find that balance of working on my own personal projects and then also, working with other clients and stuff like that. So far, I've only worked with people that I really fuck with. Like people's projects, and I'm like, I love it. I love what you do. I think I can help you out, get you to like another level and enhance it a little bit more. But I think I might eventually get to a point where, random clients are just contacting me, say, hey, here's a bag and let's go ahead and get this done. It's like, I don't care what you're doing, but like, I can make it look better, but I'm not passionate about it. I think I could eventually get to the situation where you were like, this is a fucking job. I might as well just have a 9 to 5 if I'm going to be taking projects that I'm not passionate about. Well,
and there is a certain amount of also like getting paid, like if they're paying you, then that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I've talked to one of my partners, Adam, about that kind of stuff quite often. He's one of the writers who does a lot of the short films that Wrong Space produces. He's written like maybe hundreds of scripts for us that we haven't produced. But he was like, hey, what if we like tried to do more commercial work and that kind of stuff? And the more we talk about it, it kind of sounds fun, but it also kind of sounds like work. So and the stuff like the concert, like that's fun. I did some music videos back in 2011 when I was living in Seattle trying to make ends meet, and so I was like trying to be a filmmaker, and I was working at PetSmart, and I was doing these like music videos for people, and that was fun because like they're bringing their music, I'm getting to make basically a short film. It's still difficult because like you're using other people's money, and you want to make sure that you're giving them value.
That's a scary thing.
And you don't want them to feel like you have gypped them in any way, but you also want to make sure that you can pay rent. And so it's doing things like that is very, for me at the time, and I think still to this day, if I were able to do that kind of thing, would be very rewarding. Versus doing big projects for people who, I don't necessarily enjoy the content. Like I love the stuff that I made in 2019. Like I'm really happy with all that stuff. And the people that I met are cool people. Like I'm not downing them at all. It really is just a matter of like passion. And if I'm going to spend that much time and that much energy on something else that's not my own thing, it's just not what I feel like doing.
Right. And I feel like me and you are at different points of that because you've been a creative for so long that it's like...
Sorry. It's just like I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's like 25 years.
Yeah.
of making bullshit.
Right. I mean, but yeah, I guess everybody pops when they pop or whatever.
Yeah.
But you've been doing it for so long. It's like you have so much passion built inside of you so that you have a whole bunch of different things. Me just starting off, I think, and I've said this on a podcast before, I feel like my creativity is tied to other people's creativity at this point. So it's like, even with this podcast, it's like, I really feel like I can find a groove with talking to people like you and trying to develop my creativity. And I want to use this podcast to like talk about the projects that I'm doing. And then like, okay, well, this is what I learned from this project, or this is some shit I'll never do again, or this is what I wish I would have learned. And like talking to people like you, I think that's how I find my groove in this podcast. Like I want to be, no matter how much I learn, I still want to be a student of people like you and just trying to help document your journey and figure out like, what's my next step? What's my next move? So it's like, even when like the last guest that I had on, Brittany Witherby, she was an awesome guest to have on. I mean, because she's with Exposure Heights. She started her own company. And it's just like, there's so many people that I can learn from. And I feel like my audience can actually learn along the same line, learn at the same time that I'm learning from you guys.
Yeah.
So I do want to start to develop my own independent projects. But I think at this point, just to keep my cameras from getting dust on them, I just have to like do whatever I need to do right now.
Keep making stuff.
Yeah, just keep making stuff. And I think, I'm starting to get a lot of it, not a lot, not as much as I want, but I'm starting to get people approaching me to like start producing projects for them. And I got to be honest, it's exciting, but when money's attached to it, fuck, man. Because it's like it is. I like on one hand, it's just like, I do want to value myself. So I have to price myself right here. And then at some point, I'm like, fuck, I asked for that much money and they're giving it to me. Now I really got to show out and produce. It's like, fuck, that's scary.
The thing that's going to drive you crazy, because here's the thing about making content the way that you're where you're starting. And I've been here a couple of times. You start doing stuff consistently and people know that you do it. They're going to start coming to you and asking you for this stuff.
Right.
You're going to say, okay, well, this is going to cost X dollars. And they're like, okay. Yeah. You're like, damn it, I should ask for more money. Like,
I got a project that I'm doing in a couple months. That's exactly what happened to me.
It's a good problem to have, but like it's something you like starts fucking with you, and then you get to the project and you're like, oh man, I should have asked for more money.
Yeah.
And so like one of the things that I've been doing, kind of as a valuation of myself as a filmmaker over the past like 4 years, is when people come to me with that stuff, instead of asking them for money, I've been asking them for like favors, because I have my day job that pays the rent, and I'm not quitting that anytime soon because I need healthcare and I need money. Right. And so like something that's I find to be more valuable is having my name on things and having Wrong Space Films specifically now putting it on stuff. I've been doing some like little stuff that I'm not really comfortable talking about right now, but I've been doing some like little stuff where I'm putting Wrong Space Films in other people's short films lately, basically. And I'm not doing much, but I am doing enough to where like they'll put the the little logo at the end of the film, or they'll put like produced by Wrong Space Films, even though I didn't really do that much. But like little things like that I've been like trying to sneak into stuff, because I feel like eventually that will be more valuable to me than like say $500 for the weekend or whatever it is. So I think you'll get to a point where, number one, you're valued at a certain point, and you should definitely take money for things that you're doing. Number one, just for the equipment alone that you have.
Exactly.
Like if think about that. If you're bringing equipment, if you don't feel like, if you're in a place where you don't feel like your expertise is necessarily up to par with getting paid for it, keep in mind that you have all this gear, and you should at the very least get paid for that.
Right.
And so and enter that into your evaluation of what you're doing.
Yeah, so I have a couple projects coming up, and I'm not getting paid for them, but I'm working with people whose services I could actually use.
Yeah.
So it's like we kind of had like a little barter system where it's like, okay, I'll do this amount of shows for you, you do these amount of services for me, and it's like it's working out, and at the same time, it does kind of fill the space for me to be more consistent in my producing, because it's like with me just starting off, I'll forget something. I'll forget how to set things up the right way and how to like dial things in if I don't work enough.
Yeah.
And if the only time I actually work is when I'm doing my own podcast and like when I get paid, which is extremely rare for me right now,
right,
then I'll never be doing anything. So I think we struck a good balance with some of the people that I'm producing for. Is like, okay, you do this for me and I'll produce your show. And it is working. It's helping me build up my confidence and just building up a routine of like, okay, this is what works. This doesn't work. Let's go in and just fine tune this. So it is actually helping. And every time I set up, I feel like I'm getting better, and I just need to make sure that I'm staying consistent. Yeah, because that's the name of the game for me. It's like even if I'm not producing for myself solely, if I'm producing for other people, I just feel like I'm just learning so much more, and it is actually helpful.
That's good. That's a good mindset to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, and I guess we kind of talked about it, but how do you turn it, like, how are you turning Wrong Space Films into a business? Like, have you thought about the point where you're like, okay, now I need to start, I mean, because you're an accountant by trade. Are you looking at, okay, now I just start putting people on payroll and
I am talking right now to two people about like doing something like that.
Okay.
However, Wrong Space is not making money. It has never made money. There has been, I've gotten paid for some stuff that I've done. I've gotten some like merchandise money. I've gotten some ad money in the past. Never enough to even come close to covering any of the costs that I've had on making literally anything I've done. Like even on Zoom, like if you think about on Zoom, we have, not on my end, but like my buddy Ryan has a on Zoom subscription, which costs, I think, like $15 a month. And the reason we have that is because we are on Zoom for hours and we're recording. And if you just use the free version, it kicks you off after 30 minutes.
Okay.
That alone, and then like if you wanted to include the booze, I've never made enough money
to even cover
the booze in the subscription. Like no way. So which I consider the booze part of the cost of making that show.
Absolutely,
and
very necessary.
And so I definitely am starting to really think about like what that would take. I do have a business plan in the works that I've I figured out how much it's going to cost to have two people kind of like working all the time, which is way too much money. And I want to do it. It's just I've got to reach the point on the YouTube side of things. YouTube has to start making money before I can really bite that bullet and go towards that.
Right.
But I've definitely thought about it a lot. I am working on some like preliminary business models of how that works. It's just a matter of how can we make money? Because I don't think there's a world where I can make Batman fan films, number one, legally,
right,
at all.
And turn a profit, yeah.
Right, and people do, but you're not supposed to.
Right.
And I don't. So figuring out how to pull that off, like, well, I probably can't do a fan film or straight up short film narrative YouTube channel because that's not what YouTube's used for. People go to YouTube to watch how-to videos and watch podcasts and these kind of like almost inspirational type stuff. They don't go there to watch big blockbuster movies because that's not where you go.
Right.
So it's really a matter of like figuring out what Wrong Space can make to make money so that we can make the narrative stuff that we're interested in.
So
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you make a project, you got a project that you're super proud of, you love it. How important is it for you to maintain ownership of that project? Or like if Amazon, like, because I know you have projects like on Amazon Prime, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But like, how important is it for you to maintain ownership of that project? Like once you create it, can somebody just buy it and like, fuck it, you got it, you own it? Or do you want to maintain the ownership of your creations?
I don't put a lot of thought into that.
Okay.
I have in the past, and it's one of those things that like, first and foremost, until people are watching my content in the thousands and hundreds and thousands and hopefully millions, it doesn't matter. Like if the content I'm making isn't getting those views, then me owning it doesn't necessarily matter. So Warner Brothers, if you want to come take all of my stuff and sell it, then take it. I don't care because I need the exposure at this point is the most important thing. We all hope to have that viral video, right?
Right.
So you make a video, it goes viral, then you can start monetizing your work. And until a shit ton of people see it, it won't matter. And at that point, yeah, maybe I'll be mad at myself for not doing a better job of like making sure that trademarks and copyrights and stuff are in place. But if it came to a point where somebody was like, Jamie made let's just say they took on Zoom, for instance, and they were like, On Zoom is now, we own it and we stole it from them and we're just going to make it. I could sue them pretty easily because I started doing On Zoom in 2020. I have the proof that Ryan and I, like, we have video evidence, we have email chains, we have text messages, we have all the stuff that, like, if they really wanted to go to bat, we could. It would be hard for somebody to say, like, oh no, this was our content. No, fuck you. Like,
right.
I feel pretty strongly that kind of stuff wouldn't be a problem, and I'm more interested in people seeing it. So if somebody did decide to come steal any of my stuff and start pumping it out, my face is on most of it.
Right.
My brand is on most of it. Wrong Space is a legit company, so, like, that's one thing I've got going for me. And I could sue them. So I'm not super worried about.
Well, I'm not even really concerned so much with like them stealing it. Like, I'm saying, like, if Amazon came and, like, paid you for it, like, okay, we're buying this from you and we own it
Gotcha.
now. And then all of a sudden shit blows up and it's like they're selling it everywhere, and it's just like, damn, I only got $1 million for it, but it's like it's worth like fucking like $20 million now.
The thing that you got to remember about that, and I would love that to happen too, right. Is I work in television and I get paid for the job that I get. I don't get royalties ever for any of the shows, and they make money forever.
Right.
So in an instance like that, if they wanted to come buy a thing, something that companies do all the time is they buy scripts. And unless it gets made, that's all the writer ever gets. They have the opportunity later, if it gets made, to, like, renegotiate different things. But that's kind of the thing is, like, if somebody wants to come take my thing and make it a big deal, well, that just probably opened a ton of doors for me. Let's just say somebody came and saw Joker's Vacation and they were like, oh my God, that's the best Batman fan film of all time. We're going to, get DC's stamp of approval on it, and then, we'll give you $300 for it. I would take that in a heartbeat. Even though I spent $5,000 and 2 years working on it, I would take $300 because if they're going to take that and throw it up, and then Wrong Space Films and James Davenport is what made that happen, then all of a sudden I will be able to use that to get more work. And I'm sure there are artists out there who are like, you shouldn't do that because you should take more credit or something, or like you should care about it more. I just don't. At this point in my life, I've been doing this type of content where I make these little short films and do this kind of thing for over a decade.
Right.
And if you really go back, I've been making it since I was in second grade, which might be giving myself too much credit, but, like, I made movies in second grade,
right.
And I did it all the time. So I guess my point with all of that is the exposure that would create for me is the most important thing for me right now. Kind of like we were talking about earlier, like anything that goes viral, making sure you can monetize on it, but if it never goes viral, it won't even be a thing you got to worry about.
And then, and that's kind of another problem. Like, owning 100% of something that doesn't go anywhere is fucking worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this conversation has been great because it gives me so much more to think about, because I'm always constantly thinking about all that stuff. Even though I'm only, like, with this podcast, I want to say just barely, like, 20 episodes in, like, I'm still trying to think about other things, and I don't know if that hinders me in any way. Like, if I'm putting the cart before the horse, but I just feel like there's certain things that I just don't want to do. I've seen, like, there's a couple people, like, that I know in Atlanta that have went viral, and I don't see them capitalizing on it in any way. Like, it was this one guy, like, have you seen a guy, like, that rides on a belt line?
That's exactly the guy I was thinking about.
Yeah. So it's like he blew up, like, riding a one wheel, playing a guitar, and it's like, it's fucking awesome. But I went, and I haven't talked to him. Well, I've talked to him, a little bit after that, but I haven't really gotten to the details. But I just wonder, has he really been able to capitalize off of that, or did he go viral and it's just like, oh, now I'm rushing to put an album out?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't necessarily know what his specific deal is, like as a musician.
Right.
But I know that he was on the field, like in Mercedes-Benz Stadium playing.
Yeah.
Like
that's true.
So
that's
like
true.
I think he might not have been ready.
And he has
for
an
it.
awesome album. Like the album is actually really fucking.
So he's a musician.
Yeah, he's
okay.
a musician. Yeah.
I mean, I
Great
assume
one too.
I know he's like plays the guitar and he rides the one wheel and he looks fucking cool doing it.
Yeah.
But I haven't like dived into like what what his deal is. But I follow him on Instagram and I like watching people skateboard.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
think it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And to watch him do that with like a little amp on his,
it's fucking awesome.
it's so cool. I don't know what he's, I assume he has done something. I'm hoping that he's doing, something to monetize on it. But that's the kind of thing where it's like, what do you do? You know, like if his thing is he rides on the Beltline on a skateboard and plays music, and that's why he went viral. How can he continue? How can he take that and continue making content that's relevant?
Right.
Because like that's not necessarily his music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and I've seen things pop up. Like he has like a I guess like some type of sponsorship with like Dell interviewed him for a couple different things. Guitar Center interviewed him. So like I see things, but I just wonder like at the peak of when people were like really paying attention to him, was he able to like cash in? And that may not be what he was actually considering.
Yeah.
But that's always one thing I'm thinking of. It's just like, what's going to happen when I make that one piece of content that really connects with everybody? Am I able to make sure that I'm the one that's capitalizing off of it? And then I'm like, well, is that really thinking about, is that really putting the cart before the horse, like thinking about stuff like that on the back end? And because, I mean, it goes back to us talking about infrastructure.
I was going to say something that like you mentioned earlier was the group, the people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be an important thing and in a fairly easy infrastructure that you can build. Like say something blows up. I know for a fact I'm going to call 5 people I know and be like, hey, this thing blew up. I need to do this week. I just got 100,000 views or whatever it is, and I need to capitalize on it. Are you free tomorrow night? If they say no, I'm going to call person number 2.
Gotcha.
I'm going to call person number 3 until I can figure out how to do that. So maybe not necessarily having the, putting in a shit ton of work on your own infrastructure, but working on those relationships to where once something like that comes around, you can fall back on somebody and say like, hey, I need this now because of X, Y, and Z. And I think you can capitalize on that pretty easily. I think you might be better off spending your time cultivating that kind of infrastructure, if we'll call it that, because that's going to be, I think that would probably be one of the bigger things that could help you out in that instance and help me out too. Like that's what I would do. Hands
right. Because the relationships that you build are one of your greatest assets.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So like if you blew up tomorrow on something that you posted and you were like, Jamie, I just blew up on this thing. Even though I just talked about not wanting to do other people's stuff, but like if you were like, hey, I have this idea, I need to make it happen, and I need to make it happen in like 5 days. Well, hell, I'm gonna be excited as hell about like that happening to you, and I will help whatever it takes to like continue that on. And then if that's like 6 months of the year, and we're riding this wave of like whatever it is, then that's cool, that's important, that's fun, and we should do it. That's an interesting idea that I only just came up with while we were talking about it, because you were talking about like the people and the infrastructure and
right.
like how much energy do you put into something. And I think as a creative person, as a filmmaker, as a podcaster, content creator, you should probably like 90% be focused on your content. And that's something I got to figure out. I got to start doing better. Like 90% content, and then 10% like that infrastructure, people, making sure that you spend the time putting it on platforms and stuff. Maybe not 10%, probably like 80, 20 or something.
Right. So how important do you think it is to build a personal brand? Like, you talk a lot about wrong space films, as you should, but how important do you think it is to let people in, to let the viewers into like your personal life and like your behind the scenes and what you have going on a personal, professional level?
So that's something I've been thinking about a lot more lately, with Wrong Space on Instagram specifically, because I've been kind of fucking around with like different types of posts, and I'll be honest, the posts that I get the most likes on and the most traction on are things that are about me. And I think Instagram is uniquely built around that. Like, people on Instagram are more interested in people's personal lives than they are like the brand that they are. Like, I hate seeing Instagrams where it's just like somebody selling something constantly.
Right.
But I love seeing Eastgate. Like, again, I'm a sucker for these Eastgater Instagrams. But like, there'll be like a bunch of Eastgate stuff, and then they'll sell something, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna buy into whatever they're doing right now because I love their content and I know it helps them or whatever.
Right.
But like, I've noticed on Wrong Space, whenever I post stuff that's more personal to me, people tend to, and I know that a lot of that has to do with like my friends are on Wrong Space and they don't give a shit about on Zoom necessarily, but they'll give a shit about my dog or my cat or whatever I'm doing. But that being said, on those posts, I get people who don't follow Wrong Space liking it and commenting on it, which is an interesting thing. And so I've been trying to, like, the last couple of weeks, think about like how I'm going to, because on Zoom's pretty personal, kind of like all of those on Zoom's episodes are things that Ryan and I actually did, except for the dating stuff. That's kind of bullshit. But like, right. For the most part, every on Zoom is based on conversations we had, based on like drunken fucking Zooms that we've done on our own. And I think those do well. And I think, I think showing part of yourself, being a little bit more open to that, there's kind of scary stuff. Like, right. Like if things got like popular, like we want it to, you know, my girlfriend's always telling me like, there are creeps on the internet, you know, like if things go well for you, you know, what are your safeguards for like keeping the creeps out? And I'm like, you know, I'll deal with that problem, I guess, whenever it comes around, because right now I don't have that problem.
Right. Like, I need creeps, at least one.
Yeah, I'd like to have at least one stalker, right? Definitely not.
Right, no.
But because I do know some people who've gone through that kind of stuff, and it's awful. But
yeah.
But all that being said, I think people like that personal connection, and especially from a content creator. Do you watch Casey Neistat?
Absolutely.
So I was not a huge Casey Neistat fan 10 years ago,
right.
But 3 years ago, my roommate got me onto it, and I fell in love with that guy.
Well, see, I didn't really get into him until I got into Eastgate, and then of course he was like the fucking boosted board god or whatever. Yeah. So yeah,
he so the stuff that, like, he's a filmmaker, absolutely. You know, and he makes he does really fun YouTube stuff, but he's a filmmaker, and I got into him because of his vlogs. Obviously, most people did, because that's like his call to whatever. But like, he's out there, and it's very personal. You know, like, I know what his kids look like. I know what his wife does. I know like what his bedroom looks like. I know what his brother-in-law does for a living. I know so much about Casey Neistat. I personally would never, like, I tried doing vlogs before. I don't like doing them because like we talked about earlier, I don't like being the center of that kind of stuff. I wish I did, because I would love to just fucking skate around and drink beers and go surfing.
And that's the thing about it, like, especially like when the weather was really good in Atlanta and we were skating like really heavy, to be able to document that, like Casey Neistat documented his life, would be fucking awesome. But it's just, I've tried his style of vlog. It looks simple, but it's not, because he's got like 3 cameras out. It's not just his one camera. Sometimes he'll set up a camera here, and And I've tried to do that out in the public, especially in Atlanta. It's fucking impossible to try to do that
too.
Without feeling weird. Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. And you know, I'll see on the way here this morning, I saw some influencers over, because I live on Piedmont, right at that intersection. And so there's always influencers in that intersection, like doing stuff. And first of all, I hate the term influencer. I hate that so much because I don't want to make content to influence you to buy stuff. I want to make fun content. Like your podcast it gives me a what's the word? It gives me that creative boost. Like whenever I listen to your podcast, I get excited about making stuff because it's about making stuff.
Appreciate it.
Whereas like if I go to somebody's Instagram page and it's a picture of them holding an energy drink next to the fucking ATL sign in the intersection, I'm like, I don't give a shit about that. Like I get that you're a pretty person, but like give me something anyways. But like I saw them on my way here and I was like, fuck that person.
Right.
Like, and so whenever I go out and do that kind of stuff, I'm like, this is so cringy.
Yeah.
But I've done it, like I tried doing a YouTube channel a couple years ago called Crafting the Cow.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I did, I'm like dressed up in this like weird
you were, like,
superhero
out in the city
costume.
and shit.
I was in the park running around doing yoga in like full black tactical gear.
Right.
It was so awkward and I hated it so much. Luckily I had the mask on, so that helped, but my poor buddy, like Jonathan, running the camera.
He had to film you doing that.
So bad. He was cool about it. Like he was so dope. But like, oh man, it's so awkward.
Yeah, and it's like I'm always setting up something to do that. Like in my car, I mounted like, because I got two like old Google Pixel phones that I don't use anymore. Pretty good cameras on them.
Yeah.
So I got one mounted over here and another one mounted over here. So I'm trying to do like a vlog style where I can do like multicam and stuff like that.
Nice.
And like I'll press record where I'm like headed to the gym and I'll kind of talk a little bit. I've never put any of them out. I have like 10 of those videos.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why would anybody care? But I have to think, because I watch stuff like that.
I was going to say like
what am I worried about?
I'm not like, don't worry about that because there's definitely a market for it. All right. My thing is just like, I find it so awkward to do it. But if you're making that stuff, put it out, man.
Okay.
Put it out. Because like I would watch that shit.
So, and one thing for me though is that I'm getting better at it, but I feel like every time the camera's on, I start to perform. I'm different from, like, I feel, and it's like, even now, like, before the camera's on, I feel like I'm so articulate. I feel like my points are so relevant. I feel like I'm just on point, and as soon as the camera's on, I'm like, it's just, I just don't feel as comfortable on camera as I do when I'm having a normal conversation.
Yeah.
It helps, speaking to somebody who I have like a rapport with, like me and you, like go pretty far back or whatever. Like we're good friends or whatever. We've spoken about stuff like this before.
We've had some beers before, yeah.
Yeah, we've had some beers before, so it makes it easier to talk to you about stuff like this. But it's just like I'm still getting comfortable with being on camera, and especially doing a vlog style where you sticking the camera in your face. I'm like, I'm not okay with this.
And like, what is it that you're trying to say? I think you would be surprised, if you're going to the gym and you're like doing random stuff, like the Casey Neistat stuff. I watch every single video that he posts.
Yeah.
Everything. I just find it so interesting to be able to like see into his life.
And it does help that he has a higher production value than most vlogs out there.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to do like the 2 camera thing. It's like, yeah, you got one camera in your face, but what if you had another one, kind of change angles and make it a little bit more interesting?
He does like those aerial shots, and he does like the cities, the time lapses and stuff.
But that's like a full on production though.
It is.
Yeah.
But he does that like, and he was able to do it after, like he started his vlog well after he was doing other stuff.
Right.
But his vlog is what really blew him up. I don't know. I think somebody like yourself, you're doing a podcast, so you're doing a lot of interviews, right? I think also, so that is its own platform. I think doing a vlog, if you could do a daily vlog, fuck, that's cool.
Right.
That's really cool. Something that, but like even a weekly vlog, just a few minutes of your week to put on a different platform than what your podcast does, right. I think people would react to that well. I would react to that well because I would see, especially if you're like out there e-skating and you're out there like making like the dope video, the dope coffee, the dope coffee video,
right.
And the concert that digital concert that you did. Mm-hmm. Like you're vlogging about that kind of stuff as you're going too.
See that would make me more comfortable doing stuff like that, like doing behind the scenes content. I would feel more comfortable vlogging about that than, I just got this sandwich from such and such. It's like, just like you said earlier, like have a purpose. Don't just be like holding a fucking product or something like that. Actually, like show an aspect of your life that's actually important.
Right.
And a lot of people vlog about random stuff, and I watch it all day long.
Yeah.
But I don't feel comfortable making stuff like that, at least not at this point. I want to say, if I'm going to be on camera, at least say something or do something that's going to add a little bit more value to people before, because then afterwards, you can actually just talk about anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Just like I watched like the Joe Budden podcast. And a lot of time, I started watching them because they were talking about like the Spotify deal when him leaving Spotify and Joe Rogan had just came along and stuff like that. And he was talking about like the business aspect, and that's what made me really want to tap in and actually watch his content. But after I got into that, I just started watching him talk about random shit with his friends. And it's just like, I don't feel like I'm at a point right now where I have the ability to just talk about random shit. So I want to talk about stuff, with people like you who are producing content and making things and the challenges that creatives face. And I think that's important. And then the vlog should kind of dovetail on that and be a part of that. And then I could talk about the random shit after that, after I've built like a following.
That's smart. Like keeping a focus on the content. That's something that I have a hard time doing with Wrong Space because, the stuff the short films that I make most of the time are just kind of like dumb fucking short films that are like stupid and whatever. And even on Zoom is not on brand, right? Wrong Space Films is named that way because I want it to be about science fiction. Like I love science fiction. I consider comic books and stuff to be part of that.
Yeah.
So like staying on brand is very important. And then like you said, later on you can start venturing out or whatever. But I think it's great that you have a focus of right now for your podcast, because for instance, like what you're doing outside of the podcast is you are effectively producing creative people's stuff for them, right?
Right.
The Dope Coffee, they have a music label, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Dope Coffee Music. Mm-hmm. So you're working a lot with musicians. You're working with other filmmakers. The lady that you had on your podcast last time, I watched the YouTube video. I don't think it was on the Spotify. No. But it was, but I watched that, and so you're working with creative people on the podcast, but then you're helping creative people do their creative thing outside of it.
Right.
And I think that mixed with the vlog would be a really dope fucking content circle for people,
right.
Because if I was listening to your podcast and we're talking about making videos and making music and all this kind of stuff, and then I see a vlog with you, BTS, doing that stuff, that's cool. That would be really
and that's
cool.
the type of stuff that's exactly the type of stuff I want to start making, because when I was doing a podcast before, so me and you started the first couple episodes. I think, what did we do, 3 episodes of
did
Eastgate?
3, yeah, we did Duncan,
Pete and Jane.
And
Duncan, Pete, and Tazi. Yeah. So we did those 3, and then I didn't want to get pigeonholed into doing just Eastgate, so I started talking about other stuff, and then after a while, it kind of got weird for me to a point where I felt like all we were talking about was movies and TV shows, and that's awesome. A lot of people build a great niche around that.
Yeah, but
I just didn't want to say, "Oh, that's bad" or "That's good" without me actually producing anything on my own. Where people, I need to
respect your opinion on
exactly.
What it is.
You don't respect my opinion because I haven't created anything myself, or who am I to judge somebody else's stuff when I don't have anything where they can judge my stuff? So I wanted to kind of just put myself in a position where I can not speak as an authority, but have some type of, reasoning of actually being able to talk about other people's stuff or whatever. So I think this is a better platform for me because this is the type of stuff that I'm so interested in. Like, how do you create content? And that's the type of thing I want to ask people like you. How do you create? What are the challenges? And, what can you teach me and the audience about how to be a better creator? So I think this is a much more better platform for me to do that, because I'm always asking why, how are you doing this? How can I be better? And
you were doing that before the podcast. Like,
right.
Even when we were Eastgating around and just hanging out there, I would be like off on the side, like listening to like you and other people talk and stuff. And you were always like asking them what's like, how do you do this? And like, you're always very interested. And that's very cool, because number one, people love being asked questions.
Right.
Right. Like, it makes them feel good. Like, oh, I know, like, oh, you're asking me because you think I know something. Like, and I'll tell you.
Exactly.
And it feels good. And people like that. That's why I think probably one of the reasons people like you is because you're so personable, and like they're drawn to that. And so I think it's a great idea. I think this new kind of idea that you've got going on, where you're talking to people about this kind of stuff, is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think self-awareness is a really important thing. And I just realized that I'm always a person that's going to be asking questions, who always wants to know, like, I like that you did it, but how did you do that? How did you accomplish that? Like, how did you put the lights there? How did you set the cameras up? Like, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you tried to do this? And then it's just like, I like watching people's journeys. I like watching people start at here and then they blow up. It's just, like I said, one of the biggest things is like watching Eric Decker get from a point where he's making amazing stuff that nobody's seeing. And then all of a sudden, he's like one of the fastest growing YouTubers in history. Like, how the fuck? And I can see him constantly increasing the stakes in his videos. So I see that, but it's just like, even with you, it's just like with the on Zoom, as soon as I see it pop up, I click on it right away. And I know y'all probably get tired of me saying this, but every time y'all make one, it's the funniest one that y'all ever made. And it's just like, I say that every single time, but I mean, it really is true. So I just, if you're comfortable with that, I would like to see the behind the scenes of like some of the stuff, like one of the videos that y'all try to make. I would love to see like the bloopers of that, because they come out so great. And it's just like, you inviting me to do one is like the greatest honor in the world, but it's the scariest shit, because it's like, I would hate for the one that I'm on to be the worst one that you guys ever did.
You would probably hate it just because you're on it, but I bet it would be a lot better than you think. I bet it would be. So I'm glad that you said that you're interested in seeing that stuff, because we're talking about releasing those. Okay. So like we do. I mean, it takes like 30 minutes to an hour to shoot one of those. Okay. Mostly because I never know my lines, and like, so it's kind of fun. We say some pretty fucked up shit.
Right.
Because three friends, like, we are like college buddies. Like, we go back like 14 years at this point. And we have been through some shit together. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to put that on the internet.
I'm that guy. I'm that person too.
I'm just super nervous, because like some of the stuff that we say and joke about, I'm like, people wouldn't really think that's funny because it's really in poor taste.
Right.
But I'm thinking about posting it. Like, I'm thinking about like maybe even just a Patreon or something, like something where like people would have to pay me to like see how fucked up I can.
I would definitely subscribe to that, because I know a lot of people, like, there's a couple different podcasts that I watch. Excuse me, like the Wash Gods podcast. I watch them all the time. Like, they're great, and it's actually a local podcast. They're in Atlanta too, so I watch them, and they're actually thinking about like putting some of their stuff on Patreon. And I'm just like, I think that's great. I think that's amazing that so many people are actually looking to not just monetize, because it's not just about that, but it's just like, you're creative and you do great stuff. And it's like, I think people should be compensated for doing amazing stuff. It's like, that's what everybody's doing. There's so many people creating great content. It's just like, I would love to see somebody get paid to do what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most amazing thing in the world to me.
Yeah. And seeing the BTS of it is we all like being flies on a wall.
I'm a nerd about that.
We all like watching other people do shit. Yeah. Like, I don't, over the past few years, I've heard people be like, oh, like, I like to go, people watch. Everybody likes to people watch. Right. Except for like super conceited people, but like, who the fuck cares about them?
Yeah.
Like, everybody likes to watch other people do stuff, because you're so curious. Like, like, how do you do this thing that I do? Right. Like, how is it like, how is it different? It's always a weird thing to see other people doing things, and so it's like, it's nerve-wracking, because like, you don't want other people to watch you. It's like if you're in your house, you don't want your windows open at night so people can see in, because you don't want people CNN, but like at the same time, I like watching other people in their windows.
Right.
So people enjoy that kind of content.
Right.
So yeah, having that kind of stuff. And that's why podcasts are fun too, right? We're a little bit more on brand when we're on it because we are conscious of the lights and the cameras and stuff. But being able to like tap into like different people's lives is very interesting to us.
It's like you tap in and you have access that you probably normally wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And that's just a cool thing to always have. Just like you say, a lot of people even people who don't like the people watch. Mm-hmm. It's like you're just interested in other people's lives.
Yeah.
So being able to have that type of access, whether it's on a podcast or a vlog or behind the scenes, like even with the on Zoom, like I love that because now I know a little of it might be like characters for you guys or whatever, but it does feel like I'm sitting in on a conversation that you two crazy guys are just having. So that's why I like it so much.
We amp it up on Zoom, but like when we get drunk together, we're fucking assholes to each other.
Right.
Like we did after we shot last time, I was like, hey, would y'all mind if we just record? Because we're just going to, we're already drunk, and we usually, hang out a little bit afterwards on Zoom, because that's the year we live in.
So
but, we're sitting there, and I was like, hey, do y'all mind if I record this? And we did, and then we got off, to this one topic to where, one of the guys was like, can we, stop recording? Because we just talked about some shit that, I don't want ever to, show up on.
Right.
And then it's just it was so funny, because, Ryan and I were fucking yelling at each other. We're best friends. Him and I are super fucking close. I can't tell you some of the shit we've gotten into. But we just go at we went on a trip to Hawaii a couple of years ago just for fucking fun.
Wow,
which was a blast. But one night we got so we were fucking drinking all day long, and we got so shit faced. We were out on the balcony shouting at each other about dating, how I was like, you're a fucking idiot because you don't do this and you don't do that. And he's like, no, you're a fucking idiot. And we're just and it's 3:00 in the morning. All of our neighbors are pissed, and it was and our other buddy Juan was just y'all got to stop being so mean to each other.
Right.
Y'all are digging deep, and I'm we're not gonna remember this shit, But we're so when you see that stuff on camera, we amp it up, and we I might dig in a little bit quicker than I would in real life.
Right.
But him and I really dig into each other sometimes, which is a lot of fun. Which is one of the reasons why I like doing the on Zoom so much, because it's so fucked up.
So could you see the on Zoom turning into longer form content? Is there a way of stretching that out? Could you turn that into a 30-minute comedy? Is that even possible?
On Zoom specifically, probably not. And both of those guys got mad at me because when we started on Zoom, each of those scripts were 4 pages long, and I was like, this has got to be a minute. And they that goes back a while, but I was like, this has got to be a 1 minute long, and because I personally don't think I would want to watch something like that for 4 minutes. But a minute, fuck yeah, it's easy. We have talked about we tried doing a podcast this week.
Okay.
After I talked to you about coming on here, I was like, I want to try to do a podcast.
You guys absolutely should.
We did, and it just ended up being Ryan and me bitching about stuff for 3 hours.
That might work though.
I don't know, man. I rewatched it, and the night that I recorded all that other stuff after our podcast, I really liked it. I thought we had a really interesting conversation because we were talking about time travel and shit, and we were yelling at each other, but it was inconsequential, I guess. But we got fucked up the other night, and after we were done, I was and I rewatched it. I was like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm an okay person now. You know what I mean? I was having the conversation, but after having the conversation, I don't know if I don't know how I feel about myself anymore.
Wow.
So I don't necessarily know if we'll dive into that. We were talking about it. I think we're going to try to
I would have loved to see that.
I might share it with you, but it just feels dirty.
Wow.
And because it's one of those things like when you're with a friend and you're feeling really super comfortable with the things that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's like you wouldn't want that conversation to get out there.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that I even have it recorded is kind of scary. But like, please don't hack my computer. But yeah, so we're talking about doing it, but we're not exactly sure what it's going to be about. We even talked about maybe not having it called like on Zoom or being on Zoom related, just doing like a Wrong Space podcast about kind of just like filmmaking stuff.
I think that'd be dope.
Because we do make a lot of stuff, or we have made a lot of stuff. It's just we've made mostly stuff that we've never released because again we get like super self-conscious about it. But yeah, we'll try. I'm like rambling on at this point.
But I like that though. I mean, because that's really what I want to know. It's just like just being creative in any form is awesome to me. So the fact that y'all thinking about starting a podcast, like you already piqued my interest. Like just I want to know some of the shit that you guys actually said. Just because you're saying like it's been that crazy, but I mean like I know you and I've known you well for me because I don't hang out with a whole lot of people. So it's like the amount of time that I've known you feels like a long time. So it's like that's a long like friendship for me or whatever. But I know you enough to know that shit's got to be entertaining. And it's like if it's anything like the on Zoom shit that y'all do, like it's got to be fucking hilarious. So I would like to see y'all try to do that in some type of form. So
we'll fuck around with it.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see that.
I still want you to come in and then do an episode. It's super fucking easy. Like it literally takes like 30 minutes. And when we have a guest, because we had a couple of guests on it.
I've seen them. Yeah.
And those episodes go a little bit quicker than our normal episodes because we're taking this person's time. And whatever, but yeah, I would still like to have you on. I don't know what it would be, you know, like those were like.
That's the thing about it too. I wouldn't even know. Like, I don't know. We'll figure something.
I had some ideas, but yeah, I'll let you know, and we'll see how it kind of goes.
We'll talk about it. Okay, yo, it's been great having you on. This podcast actually went longer than I expected.
Oh, shit.
Well, it's like an hour and like 30 something minutes, but it's because I've had so many questions for you, and you were able to answer like everything that I wanted you to answer. But I don't want this to be the last episode. Like I want us to actually do this again. This was fucking awesome.
That's fun.
Hopefully, I'll get enough confidence to be on the Zoom with you guys and actually do one of those episodes. But this has been a great episode, and I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, thanks.